Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello and welcome to Blackbird. We are going to start in 5 minutes. I really love to be on time, but we have a little bit of traffic. I don't know if you all faced LA traffic was unusually, or maybe this is the new usual. Yeah, but so happy to see you all. We're really glad you're here for Donversations. We'll be back. We're going to essentially have this fireside chat, and then you'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So if you have any thoughts or questions, kind of start thinking about those. There were some that were left in the chat in the RSVPs. So if you'd like to speak yours, you're welcome to, or we can ask some. And just really happy you're here. Blackbird is a storytelling studio, a space for women of color and allies to create positive change. And this conversation is so timely as we are 1 week away from a very pivotal election. And I think we're all feeling that. And I'm very excited about this evening because Don and DL are both surrogates for the campaign. They're both advocates and activists. And this Donversations is really a series to talk about the greatest allies of my life have been men and men of color. And as a space centered on women of color, I think the entire inclusive conversation is important. But they're going to talk about their career and friendship and all of those things. So if you didn't get cheese and wine, please get some, or water or iced tea. This is Say Cheese in Silver Lake. He is Black-owned, 30-year veteran of cheese. He's a really incredible, and he always goes out of this world with his cheese, right? And one thing, thank you. And one thing about Blackbird is we really try to work with and include hyper-local vendors and companies. So 1010 supplies our wine, or we'll work with Black-owned wines, LGBTQ, women-owned. And that's really an important part of our ethos in this time when DEI is being attacked. And the idea of diversity is great. So we want to support that. So you'll see that La Create Space is here as well, working with us for production to record this for us. And Karim is here as well, incredible photographer. If you're at any events around town, you will see him. And we'll start in about 5 minutes, so thank you. Hello, hello. Hello. Hi. Hi, Cheryl. Yes, go, go. Hello, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Blackbird. As I said, I'm Bridget Cheadle, founder and CEO of Blackbird. For those of you who just came, we are a storytelling studio, a visionary membership for people who want to make the world a better place. And I am very happy to be standing in this place right now. And we do programs, and we have members who come and work during the day and tell their stories and do yoga and beautiful things. But the deepest part of it is that we do it in community. And one of the things I learned over these years is that idea of people who are blazing trails for good is really fun. It's a fun group to be in. So with us being 1 week away from election, we will be hosting a grassroots community roundtable. You can get information with Deborah Lee and the Holly Mitchell, who is here tonight. And so that, yes, this is our district. One of those things about community is the social isolation that sometimes comes from being an entrepreneur or coming out of the pandemic, is something that we want to be mindful of. And this conversation is a roundtable to talk about any of the fears surrounding the election and the things that we can still do. So that's what that'll be tomorrow. But tonight is one of my favorite programs. Donversations came out of my husband, Don Cheadle, who is an activist, an actor, producer, and pretty decent guy. I might marry him or something. But just about how our allies are showing up, and then conversations with his friends. So tonight we have Don and D.L. Hughley, who are both incredible gentlemen who will have this intimate conversation in front of you. And then I'm going to introduce Don, and he will bring D.L. up. Don?
Thank you, wife. Thank you, everybody here, for braving the traffic. If you hate LA traffic, raise your hand. Whoa, I took an Uber. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going to make that guy deal with that. But as Bridget said, this is something that we do periodically. I've been really lucky to have my friends agree to come sit and speak with me and share their stories and share themselves with you. Something always comes out that I didn't know about them. I'm always very interested, as everybody in the audience is, to hear these conversations because I get to really know a different side of them. A lot of times we're just out on the golf course and hanging out and doing that, but to kind of dig in and get in depth and really find out who they are is a treat for me, and I hope it will be for you as well. So like Bridget said, we're about to bring to stage somebody who I have known cursorily for many years, but in the last few years have gotten to know a lot better. We are on we have a text thread together that if it ever gets out, we're in a lot of trouble. That I'm on it, Cedric right there is on it, Chris Spencer's on it, Dale's on it, Anthony Anderson's on it, George Lopez, so you can imagine the kinds of things that fly around on that. But another thing that has happened as a result of that is we've been together through a lot of things, through illnesses, through COVID, through deaths, through this isolation that Bridget mentioned, and just through a lot of joy and laughter. And we always find ways to pick each other up and to dig into the things that are serious. And right now we know things are very serious. So I guess I won't waste any more time. And coming to the stage right now, Mr. D.L. Hughley.
So nice, black people on couches.
Yeah, right? This is upscale.
So nice. It
yes.
is,
Well, welcome to Blackbird.
You got a classy little joint here. I feel like borrowing money from somebody. It's great.
That's what we're gonna ask you for.
Oh, yeah. Well, this interview is over fast.
Well, I think of you as one of the most interesting men in the world, and not just because you go black top, white chin. Not.
I can't leave it alone.
No,
Yeah,
I like it.
No, yeah.
Not just because by now you could have elegantly just gone with
Yeah.
hugely because that's you big time.
Yes, yes.
But just you have done a lot, and you've had many different careers, many different iterations of yourself, and many different remakings of yourself. And I think that people would be surprised to know sort of where you came from and how you got here. So just in brushstrokes, give me the story of Dio.
Well, I grew up here. Well, not
Yes.
here, because like when I grew up, I didn't even know white people lived in L.A. Like we got on the 110. Like I lived on Avalon and Rosecrans. You would go down to Rosecrans, get on the 110.
Like, oh, damn.
You would get off on Slauson, and you would or you would go the other way, and you go to the beach. I had no concept of what. Like I would see things on TV, and they would talk about the city I lived in, and I had virtually no point of reference. I'd be like, wow. And I remember the first time I ever saw, I was watching The Price is Right. Because, back then we didn't have VCR, so your mom was VCR, right? Like,
Yes.
what happened? Well, Luke and Laura got married. So,
Your mom was a VCR. Yes.
so when I came on, I saw a guy on The Price is Right. He said, I live in L.A. And I was like, what? Like, I had no point of reference. And then later on, many years later, I would learn that wasn't a unique experience for a lot of people growing up in urban environments because it was deliberately set up so black people would be compartmentalized and stay in certain areas. So the roads were narrow. You used to have to go highways where they're heavily patrolled. So, I started to, as I got older, I realized my entire experience was to do exactly what it had done, was keep me confined to a space where it was designed for me not to have a point of reference. So.
And were you a dreamer? I mean, what did you think you were going to be? When you thought about the future, did you think about the future?
No, because I never knew anybody went to college. Like I never, but I did. This is one thing. I used to feel what I would later learn is empathy or sympathy. I would feel so bad because when I grew up, it was the dudes who had who were either athletes or dope dealers, and they had all the girls in the nice cars. But I remember feeling very horrible. Like I didn't even know why, but I felt bad for them because I knew later on I would know that I would see things in the world that they never would. Like it's like in life you have either a great first half or and a shitty second one or reversed. But I knew that they were having the best moments of their life right then, and I knew I would see things that they would never would. And I don't know how I knew that, but I always knew I would see things that I couldn't reference at that time.
Well, see, I know now because I know you very well, and I know you have one of the most unique minds that I mean, I'm dead serious. We've had some of the greatest conversations, and I imagine I'm trying to see you as a kid,
Yeah.
and wondering if like somewhere in the back of that, because for you to have that knowledge, for you to have that understanding
Right.
that you were looking at people that it was going to become despair,
Right.
But it didn't. But you weren't despaired, and
No.
you actually moved through. It's like, what do you think you were built of? Who instilled that in you?
I knew it was a lack of. Like I knew like I wasn't my mother's favorite or nobody. I knew that. So I remember and my wife will tell you, I used to play with myself. I still do. but
No,
I'm
it's
talking
all right.
about-
It's fine. It's a safe space. This was a safe space.
But I used to play with my hands. I used to play with even when I first got married, I would play with my hands, and she would tell me that I was stimming. It was called self-stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never, nobody would talk to me, and I would play with my hands, and I would and my mother, I remember I used to be so scared. The only thing that would calm me down is the sound of my own voice. Like I would go, well, I would talk to me like I was like somebody that I was like,
Wow, yeah.
And so after a while, I knew that it would only be me for at some point in time, and so it never seemed strange to me to feel away or to be by myself. It never felt strange to me. It just never felt. It felt familiar. So when I got on stage, I knew that something was happening. The first time I ever got on stage.
Yeah, I want to know like what made you go, okay, you know what? I'm gonna get on stage and I'm gonna make people laugh, or I'm gonna tell stories, or
On 135th and Avalon was a barber shop Well, at that time it was on Rosecrans. It was on, excuse me, Avalon El Segundo, right next to Eve After Dark. And I went to the barbershop, and this barber named Dwayne, and he would sell VCRs and incense and do taxes
And do taxes.
and helicopter blades. Like they would
Yeah,
all.
yeah, he had it all.
And they were in there talking, and I used to always go in the barbershop and talk shit. And then they said, well, you know, if you think you're so funny, Robin Harris is having a concert with Blue Magic at a place called the what was that on the it was on the what was it? It was on Crenshaw. Total Experience, what it was. And so they let me open for him, and I remember everybody, they didn't pay me, but they walked me out the stage, and I knew when I picked up a microphone, I didn't have an act at all. I had heard a word that I didn't know what it meant until that moment. Like, it was epiphany. I like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I knew that I would never stop doing it.
And so with that, so how do you go on stage without an act? And just where did that confidence come from? Where did that, or was it just abject terror and you're like, I'm gonna push through?
I just knew I was gonna just get up there and talk shit. I'll figure it out. And it was at that moment I connected to what I had been feeling the whole time, which was I would do something that people around me wouldn't, and I knew I had a vehicle for that. So I mean this is like stuff that I know now, but it just was in the zeitgeist for me at that particular time. But I knew that this was going to be a vehicle that took me places that I would never see and that I couldn't necessarily explain to people.
And how old were you?
21, 20, 22, 21.
Did you go to college? Did you?
No.
No
I
college.
didn't- no.
Did you finish high school?
No. I wanted to, but it was like I was busy. No, I wanted to like I remember the last time I ever really went to school, I was in the 8th grade, and I went to Perry Junior High. And I knew that if I brought home my report card, that I would, you know, that back then you used to get punished for the whole summer. I'm like, what are you, the penal system? Like, so I knew that if I brought that the report card home, I knew that I would be out for so I got to back then they had those carbon paper, the pink little, and so I snuck in, and not only did I change the grades that my mother would see, I changed the grades that went to the office. I was like,
so you had a real calling.
yeah,
You were
I was like, yeah,
damn.
So I changed the grade, and I remember Miss Willard, and she came in, and a couple days before school was out, and she said, she closed the door. She said, you know, good and goddamn well these ain't your grades. And she said, if you and so I didn't just change my grade. I went down. I went AEE. Like I was.
Yeah, you went.
I
you
was
excelled.
Japanese. Like I like, and she said because you did. She said if you now because you had to go to the accelerated classes, right? But and she said if you pass, I won't tell your mother. If you don't, I will. And so the last time I ever went to school and studied hard was when I was trying not to get my ass whipped. So I would go to school with people I never saw at school. You know them people you never saw,
right.
And then later on you see them and they own a company or something.
Right.
So I went to school with them and I was struggling. I got all C's and my I remember when I came home with my report card, my mother was so proud. I was like, I can't disappoint her and let her know I fucked this up. So
Right.
I went to school and I worked hard. But after it was over, I was exhausted and I just knew that my educational journey was over. I was like, this is all I can.
Said this was too tiring.
This is all I can do, baby.
I gotta study jokes.
Yeah, this is it. I can't do this no more.
But so you had that for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and you did that, and then you also became an actor, and you also had a show.
I think that
Several.
I think that I saw things when I would never change the experience that I had because I think it's such a wellspring of experience. Like I think you just the source and whatever you use it for. Like if you have water coming to your house, you can use it for clothes, or you can use it to cook, or you can use it to wash your car. But I think that those experiences, I'd never seen so much abject cruelty and so much beauty in a place. Like I'd never seen that before. I'd seen people that were just more humane than I'd ever seen, and more like there were kids that I went to school with that I went, they're not human like they're like these people, and later on we would call them sociopaths now. But then I saw people that would do the kindest things that I'd ever seen before. And so acting or doing comedy always came from a place that was informed by all these experiences of people that were so vibrant and so indelible. I'll never forget them, but I knew that I was getting something that would power me in a way that I didn't think other experiences could.
And did you think of it as an opportunity to, you talk about, knowing that you were going to be able to do things and go places that people wouldn't go before? Did you see it as a means to an end? Did you see it as just another way to express yourself, or did you stumble into it?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I stumbled.
you stumbled into
Yeah,
it.
like everything. Like I never, I never, I never knew a purpose to it. Like when I was a kid, I used to want to be a preacher. Like I wanted to be a preacher. I used to like give talks and read the Bible, and people would come by. And then I would see so many things that were so contrary to that. Like my sister got pregnant at 13 years old, and they were so cruel to her. I was like, why would God or people that loved him be so mean to somebody that was just, And so it changed the way I functioned. But I still think part of that wanting to proselytize in a way, wanting to preach in a way, is part of what I do now. But it's not tethered to any kind of theology or anything. It's just I think there's a level of truth I try to have that's based in just knowing that I think truth is the most loving human thing you can do or be.
Well, that's what I think I hear a lot in your stand-up and also on your show. I think you're a truth teller. And you wrap it in jokes sometimes, and sometimes you just give it raw and unfiltered right down the pipe, and it's people can take it or leave it, but you don't shy away from it.
I'm scared to death all the time, though.
Talk about that.
Because I always, it's always the things that I was always afraid of are the things that I walk to, just to see if I could do it. Like I never have prayed to God to give me victory. I just always asked that He would help me stand as strong as I could for as long as I can. I want to win. That'd be nice, but more than anything, I'd like to give a good accounting of myself. And so truth is like that for me. It's like, and I've done a lot of things that were unnecessary. Like they were unnecessary just to see if I could do it. Just to not let something control me like that. And I think that it's obviously self-destructive, but it has a method, and that methodology is to keep. I remember one time I was talking to another comic, and I said, why do I do these things that I know are gonna hurt? Why do I do like when I eat ice cream and I know what's gonna do to me, or eat spicy food and I know what it's gonna, but I do it anyway. And so
what's your answer that comes back?
I don't know. I think that's. I have no I want to tell you something deep but I just I'm fucked up. I don't know, but I remember. But I always know that that's the realest place for me. That's the place that feels the most familiar to me.
The live wire.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a theme that I've done like 3 days. I did stand up for 3 nights and never do it again, even though they keep trying to get me to do it. But I think I felt that.
Right.
I think it's the most alive I've ever felt, and it's the most, other than like theater where you just you're getting the feedback.
You risk something.
Present,
Yeah,
the
you
risk. Yeah, there's no net.
Right.
But it comports with me with who I know you to be. That you want to be at that place where it's just crackling.
Yeah.
And because that's where you're getting the most response, and that's where you probably feel the most of you.
It
in
is
some ways.
Like like anybody who knows me, like my wife is like, why do you have to go on the road? Why does a bird have to why do a shark have to, I'm not a thing other than that. And so it's not vainglorious. I think it's as necessary to me as air. And I think the stakes has never been higher for people that I care about. I think that there's only so much information that people can have in just just a kind of a mundane kind of way. We have to absorb. There's so much information, so many things that count, and I think that the kindest thing you can do is to give it to people. Like my mother used to give us aspirin and orange juice. She knew it was like she'd break the aspirin up and put it in orange juice, and because she gave you something you needed with something you liked. and I think laughter is like that for me. Like if I could do it the way I wanted to do it, I would never make people laugh. I would just be as mean. I wouldn't, but I go, oh, you got to give them something. It's like a commercial. It's like it's treacle cutter. So it is as much for me as it is for them. But I know that this is a thing. I don't know that I could ever be separate from.
Well, I know when I watch you work and I experience your comedy, it's very it comes from a place that takes a curve. Do you know what I mean? I think you like to be walking people down this street, and they'd be like, "No, come over here," and like do a 90-degree turn really quick, and it's always full of, like you said, it's always has with it or centered. It's always very centered around a painful truth. Do you know what I mean? It always has something in it that you're laughing, but it also makes you kind of cringe a little bit.
I don't know, like people will ask me like because the thing I love the most is human beings. But when I like, for instance, they'll tell me about posing. They'll tell me how black men are thinking, and I know that intrinsically the quickest way to make a black man lie to you is to ask him a question with a clipboard in your hand.
I've been saying that for the last week. I love it.
Like you go. Like if you poll black people and they answer the phone for whatever reason, the number one candidate would be these nuts. Like that's who because when I like, and so knowing that is like a cheat code that you know that. And the thing about us is, and that's unique to specifically just us. You can take a black man from Kansas or Ohio or California or New York, and we're going to be rooted in some level of some of the same foods, some of the same dialects, some of the same experiences, some of the same, so we're all. But if you can take a white guy from Oklahoma and New York, and they'd be totally different. That is our superpower, is our connectivity, and so that's why so many that we can go and if you extrapolate that out, it's all across the world to some degree, and so. But I've always known that you have to do, like, I think a lot of people who know me know where I'm going, but I love the look of people's eyes when they go, "What the fuck did he say?
Yo, yeah.
Why did he say that?" Like I love that they're not with me for a while. I'm like, what? Like I love that they go, "Fuck this nigga." I'm saying, but then I see what I can do to get them back.
What's your favorite latest joke? What you been working on lately? What? Well, I know what you've been working on lately. I know what you've been working on lately.
No, because every time, you know what I hate to do? I hate to do stuff in front of my wife because she always, when she sees the finished product, it's okay, but like, oh God, I don't want to answer the phone. And like, I know when I've said something because I'll come on, she's looking at the Twitter feed or Instagram like this. Like, my wife prays so much, and I'm like, the thing that she does that I think is hilarious, she wants me to see people, she wants people to see me like she does. And like, if you only knew them, but they do. like when women say they don't like me because I'm beautiful, I'm so, no, you could be a motherfucker people don't like. I never have tried to narrate people's perception of me. That never has been important to me. But it is important to people in your life. And so probably I am like I am because when they try to kind of reorient me, I do it to be, part of it is to be counterculture, but part of it is just to kind of find a center. So when I write jokes, it's because I like to make it hurt a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
I do. I
That's
like
what
it.
I'm saying.
I'm not
And you too,
not
but
like Puffy like it, but I like.
See? That's
Not
what
like
I'm
that.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Not like that.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean.
I'm like, yeah, not like that weird. Now you can't go to jail for it.
No. Just a little painful.
Yeah.
Well,
I just like, when I see things, it's like, how does somebody 1,000 like bottles of baby oil? Like, Nick Cannon got 800 kids and he ain't got 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Like
No.
And then like.
Are these on?
Like, allegations of drug and women, like, that's just ridiculous to me. Like, drug and women, like, I love sex as much as the next man. I ain't gonna drug nobody to get it.
No, that's
I'm from the era when lies worked. Remember that? Remember you could lie?
I remember when lies worked.
A roofie ain't got shit on I love you. Like, right? That's it? Like, just let me put the tip in. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
I think when you were talking about your wife praying for you, my favorite was when you said all these things that had been happening to you. You're like, I think maybe you're praying wrong.
Yeah. Like this is like we have like my mother has I don't know if it's Alzheimer's or it's just evil. Like my mother, you know how like I'm not even trying to be mean. Like the initial signs of dementia, they become progressively meaner and meaner. But she's always been mean, so we can't even really tell. Like it's no baseline test. So I'm like,
Yes.
my brother goes, oh, she has dementia. I think it's Saturday. We should wait. But my mother was like she's a very abusive woman. And I think that and when they have dementia, they don't know what it is they did. But you still have all this resentment. Like she don't remember what she did, but I do. Like, I think when they get dementia, you should get it too, and that way everybody forgets shit together. Like,
That's right, yes.
who are you? Who are you? I don't know you. I don't know you either. You know, like that's how I deal with it. My wife prays so much, like, but I have a mother with dementia. My oldest daughter, 35 years old, pregnant with my second grandchild. She has breast cancer. My youngest daughter is a lesbian. My only son is autistic. I'm like, you pray a lot, but I don't think God listen to you. Your prayers. She said, I'm gonna pray for you. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna go on my own. You
I got
your
this.
prayers have fucked this family up. Shit, you must have been Job's wife. Shit.
Welcome to Blackbird. Let's detour
Segue on,
a little
man.
bit.
He's a horrible motherfucker.
One of the other things that you've done that people may not know about you is you're an author.
I am.
Of multiple books.
Multiple books.
Now, what comes into DL's head that says not only do I need to talk it, not only do I need to make people feel, I got to put it down on paper. I need a record
to know I
of
can
this.
do it. To know, like I didn't even know that. Right, I remember I was talking to my manager about an idea I had, and he said that's a book. And then I talked to a guy who said, "Oh, that is a book." And then we wrote it, and then I did that 4 more times, and so
5 books, right?
you're 5.
Five
and the
books.
book I'm writing a book now called Charlie's Boy, which is about my father. He never called me son or Daryl. He called me boy. He would always say boy all the time, like up until I'm like. But later on, I would come to realize that he wasn't. That's ownership to him. He didn't call my brother boy. I mean, I wouldn't either, because But he called. He called me boy. He would, that's my boy right there. And they would go, you Charlie's boy. You would, and I used to be so like offended. I like, why didn't he say my name? But he did. That was the language he spoke to me. I was his son. And so it's about all the conversations I have with him now that he's not here. Because it's hard to talk to a father who is as distant as my father was in a way that he would get. But now that he's dead, we have the best conversation. That's the way to God. Like I promise. Who knew that we have a great relationship when he died? That's crazy. Yeah. But so it's about like even now, I will look and think, what would he think if I did this? He's like my North Star. And so in a way he could have never been when he was alive. He just wasn't wired that way.
Yeah, that's just who he was? I mean, was it a generational thing? Because
I don't know.
I think a lot of us, I'll be 60 next month, and I think a lot of us whose fathers come from that generation, that wasn't something that they weren't.
Yeah.
My father was close with me, but he said I wasn't really close with my father, which is why I wanted to be sure that we had a close relationship. I think a lot of men from that era.
I want to think it's era, but it might have been just him, because he wasn't. He loved my sisters. He loved them. Like he would like call him Baby D and Baby Girl and Chickadee and come in and sit on my lap.
But I mean particular with men. Yeah. I mean there was often like an inability to understand the proper way to express affection or I remember
support. One time I said this true story. I said, "Daddy, do you love me?" He said, "Hey, nigga, you can have a hamburger or you can have a hug. Which one you want?" And like he said it like that, and it was so. And I got it. I was like, you know what? A hamburger is better. Like why would I?
Because you're sweaty.
Yeah. I remember when he was sick at the City of Hope, and I remember he wanted to. He had grown a 5-day whatever, like he had grown a lot of stubble, and I said, "Daddy, I'm gonna shave you." He said, and he acted like he didn't want me to, and I remember when I went to go get the shaving cream, the nurse said. You can't shave him because he's on heparin. He's on a blood thinner. If you cut him, he'll bleed to death. And I told my father, anyway, you just didn't want to do it anyway. He wanted me to do it, but he didn't know how to say. So he thought that I was just saying I don't want to do it, but I did. And that was just the way he was. But he was the.
You killed him, right? That's what
I
happened.
did.
See, now you got me. Now you did it to me. Now you've pulled me into the thing.
I mean, my father got hit by a train, and I came home, and he said, I will never see him again, ever, ever. And that seems cruel to me. It seems so permanent, I can't. I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I'll never see my father again. And he'll never know how much I loved him or how much he meant to me.
He knows.
And no matter what he doesn't. We tell ourselves stuff like that to make ourselves feel better. We say that to ourselves. But my father will never know what he meant to me because I never told him. And I'll never see him again. And that's so cruel that I can't find my way now. I'll never see him again. Never. Just, so everything I do, I try to make sure that he knows I know he was here. And go on.
Is a complete stranger.
Yeah.
Just came out of the audience. We don't know who this person is.
That's my husband right there.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I think that's why I don't sleep. I stay up. Like I don't do anything because I don't want to. I have to. What I have to do is work myself to exhaustion so I don't think about anything. But it's an interesting place I find myself in. And most people want peace. I don't know that that's what I want, but I do know that I want a level of clarity, and I see it oftentimes when I have I never thought I could love children as much as I love mine. And I love my grandchildren so much. Fuck my kids. Like, I don't really need them. I don't need them.
Spoken like a true grandparent.
Like, I'll call her and she'll start telling me about her day. I'm like, you had your chance. Put your daughter on. And she doesn't like me at all, but yeah.
Well, I got to meet her. I'm very glad that I got to meet you.
Oh, yeah.
Your little one. She's amazing.
Man, I'll find gigs just to be like when she smiles at me. I remember when I got a job at McDonald's and I took the money and I went and got my mother the groceries that she got. Like I would buy the groceries and I put them up. And my mother came home and she thought my father had gone shopping, which he would never do. And she said, who did this? Did your father go shopping? I said, no, I did that. And my mother looked at me in a way, because once you give a woman food or you have provided for her in some kind of way, I remember her saying, well, I'm going to make you, what do you want to eat? And I went, so she made me what I wanted to eat. And the same way that she looked at me is a look that you look for from your wife or from your children. You want this notion of knowing that they'll be protected and you'll make sure that they're safe. So the other day I was in Atlanta and I was getting ready to do the thing that aired tonight, and my granddaughter for the first time was so happy to see me. And she said, my daughter was going home and she said, no, I want to stay with him. That's what she called me. And I said, honey, this is what I do for a living, so I'm having a meeting. And I said, this is how I take care of you. So when you need something, and she looked at me the way my mother looked at me, and I went, now she'll get it now, because I think the one thing that black women don't get enough is a level of protection that somebody go all out for you without a transactional mechanism. Like I will do for you what you need for me to do for you, and it doesn't have to have anything attached to it. And so, not my wife has to do things. Now, come on now, you ain't gonna just.
Well, sure.
You're not gonna just drive around, baby girl. Now, that car don't pay for itself.
No, we knew where that was going. No.
It's your birthday. It sure is. Let's act right. But I think. So I think about that.
Tell me talk a little bit if you can, about, because I do think right now you were doing the real work right now. I mean, he mentioned something tonight. DL's got a special tonight on BET, huddling up, talking with black men about this election. And making sure that people are informed, and you're just so well spoken. But
Well,
I mean,
Don
really,
was there the whole time, so he knows what happened. But
no.
and you would never, but obviously, but I was not a fan of the vice president, and I repeated a lot of the things that had been said, and in 2019, I'd said the things that I heard, and we'd gone to dinner, and it got heated, and she asked me, to look at her record instead, and one of the things I'll say for sure is no matter where you come on this side of the spectrum, I watched a woman who called black men out who weren't necessarily pleased with her at the time, and sat in the room and stood in the gap, and took our questions and which was a weird experience because I never had a woman listen to me before, so it was like a weird thing. Like, but she listened and she said, what she said. So I went out and saw her record, and then I said, I am sorry that I had said the things I said, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make sure that you become the 47th president. Well, and she was the vice. You remember she was the vice president at that time.
Yes.
I said, I'm gonna make sure you get elected. I didn't say reelected. I said elected. And and so to me, the thing that makes me feel the worst is I was willing to believe the worst about a black woman before I ever looked. I was willing to believe it because I lived in California. How can an agent of California ever be anything other than a tool of this bureaucracy? And I think honestly, that's how a lot of black men feel who how can anybody who had this job be anything other than a vessel of that job?
Of course, because the system itself is there.
Because the system itself is so cruel. People look at the California we live in now. It was Texas before. Like people with 3 strikes law and Proposition 13 and 209 and 211. It was so cruel. Anybody who knows me know how much I'm a Californian. And we talked about leaving because it was so cruel. So imagine somebody who had a different perspective, who still had to do a job, but had a empathy and a common sense and a level of compassion that just hadn't been previously exhibited. But I can't deny the fact that I was willing to believe the worst of somebody. And that is something I have to reconcile myself with. I believed, we talked that night for a long time. That
was a great night.
Yeah, I believed the worst of somebody without even looking, which is, like, if I think you ain't shit after I read, that's fine.
Right.
But to ascribe, and now when I hear people parrot back the things I used to say, it cuts a little deeper because now, no matter what I do, my motives are going to be questioned. Now it had to be some kind of fiduciary connection.
Well, I hear that and I understand that, and I do know that a lot of the sort of hesitation to have certain surrogates speak for her was that very thing that we didn't want to look like we were in some paid position to do it.
Right.
And then you work with the campaign, you're like, they ain't getting you nothing.
Yeah.
They're barely giving you a hotel room to stay in.
I'm like, damn, I better win Employee of the Month.
Yeah,
I better do that.
saying, no, you were definitely Employee of the Month.
But you were there, you saw what happened. And I remember us talking, I was like, we going out, man. Hey, man. Yeah. I remember that. And we're like, but the thing that I come away with is I think I've learned, and this is, I think that I read something, when you get older, a man gets older, the parts of his brain that are conducive to empathy and sympathy open up, and the parts that are, kind of visceral and just kind of react in a way are diminished. And now I can hear things I never heard before. And I think that when I see women, black women in particular, this is a hope that had to be divine promise. That they could never, and I don't know if this situation will ever happen again. You had a man stepping out of power and putting her in a position where people couldn't challenge her and everything was set up.
Yep.
That is divine providence. And I think that you know, I'm not as prayerful as she is, but I understand when a being has placed his hand on something and you are called to do the work. It's like you can't be tired because you want to make it right, do this. And I think I am not fearful because I know that even though I don't have the same faith system she does, I believe that faith and fear can't exist in the same space. And I believe we will decide how far we go. And I believe as a black man, to leave women out there by herself is our greatest sin, themselves. The fact that black women think they have to do everything by themselves should be abhorrent to us. So that makes me water. Yes. This is disappointing.
Thank you. For the whiskey. Water
Yeah, oh
bag.
yeah, thank you. You said, yeah.
Yeah.
But I look at that all the time. I'm like, why? I just feel very. I feel very. I feel very not quite sad, but because I think I understand and I know what I think I believe is going to happen. But the fact that they first felt like we got to do this by ourselves because nobody's coming makes me sad.
Well, I think that there's nobody. I mean, personally, when I see the turnaround, when I see the 180, it's a true 180. I mean, it's not just like you went, my bad. You're like, I'm putting my foot on the gas, and you are about
Well, you
it.
talked to me about it before that night, so now we have to do.
Yeah.
Nigga, you fucked up.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's real. You know what I mean? And
It is.
that's a responsibility. And again, that's something that I really admire about you because you didn't have to do it, and it was easy not to do it, and you risk your platform to do it. You know what I mean?
I think that I just never want to be a coward. Never. I never want to be a coward. I never. That means the world to me. I remember when I would get into things and my wife would go, "You can't win." I said, "But you'll never look at me if I don't. You'll never look at me the same way. Never. If I lose, that's fine. You can. But if I don't try." I mean, one time she thought the Night Stalker was in the backyard, right? So she's like, "I think the Night Stalker."
That's so specific.
Yeah. He's like she's that like Richard, Charles Manson in the back. Like my wife called me and said, like, because that was it the Night Stalker or was the Hillside Strangler or whatever. And
One of those California.
Yeah, one of them
Yeah,
California
one of them
mass
California
murderers.
dudes.
And she said, "I think the Night Stalker's in my backyard." And I nigga, I'm going to get buck. I got in my Volkswagen. I drive down Avalon. I get in there. And go in the house, woman. I'm 19 years old. Nigga, I was so scared. Have you ever been so scared the taste of pennies is in your mouth? Like, you ever taste?
Yes.
I was like, please don't let him be here. And I'm in her backyard in Carson on Broadlake looking for the fucking Night Stalker. And then I had to come, baby, ain't nobody out there. God damn it.
Everybody got a plan until the Night Stalker shows up.
I remember, please, the Night Stalker was just, like, who the fuck is that specific when they go,
That's very
the Night
specific.
Stalker's in my backyard? But that's like, so, when you, I think I've always just been afraid to be afraid. Like, I watched a kid when it was 4, I was in the 4th grade. This kid, his last name was Stu. He was, you know, the bathrooms are horrible. Boy bathrooms are horrible. Yes. And he was on those metal things. You know, he was a cripple. Oh, yeah. And boy, they used to give him hell. And I came in, they had knocked him down. And he was in the muck and he goes, "Help me." I said, "Man, no, I can't, because if they'll do it to me." And he looked at me and I said, "I'll never be a coward again." I think about that. The shame of that was like, I was like, because I could have just reached out and helped him. So I'll never be a coward again. And so everything's that kind of moment where you don't have to necessarily win, but you gotta make sure you do the best you can.
Is there what's next? I mean, you're an author, you're an actor, you're a comedian, you're a comic, you're a writer, you're a friend.
We're gonna do what we ever do.
You're a pretty good golfer.
I used to be. We're gonna do what we do every day. Try to take over the world. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
right.
I would like for us to see ourselves in a way that's untethered from somebody's expectations or limitations for us. I would like for the thing I would like to do the best is to be so specific in my art form that we see ourselves as human, not kings, queens, not princes, but human. And I think the most quintessentially the thing that we are constantly striving to show is that we're just human. And I remember the most influential person in comedy for me was Marvin Gaye, because he painted a picture that was so specific. My children got it. My children's children will see it. It was just human. And I think as artists, we have an obligation to be that vivid. And if we're that vivid, because we can't see ourselves unless we see some level of reflection. And I think art is that kind of thing. But the thing that I hope for us, and I hope that I can do artistically or contribute to artistically, is to see that we are no better or no worse, no higher or no lower, but to ascribe a level of humanity that they would associate with something I did artistically would be the bee's knees for me.
That's beautiful. Something else that I love about you is, you were talking about the story with your wife, and you said you were 19. I mean, you were ride or die. You got Cedric sitting here. You guys went on tour for a long time. You maybe don't make fast friends, but you hold them to you very closely when you have them. Even if you almost killed them in a plane because you have COVID.
Yeah. All of you. All of you.
Can I tell the story?
You might as well, you son of a bitch. You started with that. You with your living room and your lights and your cheese.
No, we play in a...
Oh, now tell them, Don.
Well, I'll tell them. We play in a little golf tournament that we have affectionately dubbed the Brownie Cup, that came to us when we were thinking about our favorite things to do, golf and eat certain kinds of brownies. And the goal is to see if after the 10th hole and you've eaten a quarter of a brownie and had, was it a couple of vodka crayons?
Yeah.
And Chris, you don't do none of that. So we had to figure out.
He's the worst West Indian ever.
Yeah,
he's the worst West Indian
ever. You're not
ever.
repping your people at all. But we chartered a little plane, and we went up and golfed. And on the way back, you weren't feeling so great. And what came to light later was that he had the vid. And I was just always so... Actually, what struck me the most about it, I didn't think anything happened to us, but how bad you felt and how hard you took it, how much you took it to heart. You loved your friends so much. You thought you were gonna get sued, but that you...
You gotta be compassionate, though. That's litigation. I remember calling Chris, and Chris was laughing. I was like, I don't want nobody to die.
No, it was Yeah.
Because I didn't have the punk ass version. I had the version where
you had it. Really.
They said you got it, and then people start putting on spacesuits and shit. You be like, oh. And then I remember, I'll never forget. I got sick, and they made me. They said, made me sign this thing. What do you like? Do not recess. Like one of those kind of medical things. And I like, no, I'm good. I just got a sore throat and a cough. I'm not. And she said, I know a lot of people say that, and then.
Wonderful.
And then nothing happens. It can happen fast. And then I remember feeling so bad, and I remember calling Chris, and Chris was laughing until I realized I felt so I was like, I don't want to kill nobody. And this is Cedric's and Cedric's wife Lorna and Lucky would bring food every day because LaDonna had to be away and Kyle was sick, and she would bring food every day, and she would put it at the door. And she would put it at the door, and they would run away. She'd go, "You all right?" And I'd like.
Y'all raise your hand over there, please. Yeah. Lorna, come on, y'all put your hands up. Let them know where y'all at. Thank you.
And she would, and she would just scurry off and leave. Well, like, and so I remember, and the 10th day. The funniest thing is everybody knew I had it because I got passed out.
Stage, right?
So everybody knew I had it. So the cable TV would say, "This that house that nigga that passed out live in?" They would never come in, and nobody touched me. And so it was, I realized how just the not being connected to something, touching somebody was a weird thing. So I remember it happened on a Friday night, and back then you had to be on quarantine for 14 days. And on the 14th day, it was a Friday night. Cedric and Lorna came over, and she made a Coca-Cola cake, and you made strawberry ice cream. And Sid comes in, because back then you had to be 14 days, and Sid comes in, and he's walking in with the cake, and he stayed a little. This nigga was like back, like, and then this I'll never forget this. And then he went, ah. And then I went and said, "Oh, it's 13, not 14." I'm sorry, no. But the next day we played golf.
Yep.
And remember, nobody would play with me.
Yeah.
Like nobody, like the country club, like what nigga. And you guys all played with me, and even to get home, I remember you guys had to call the private jet, so because nobody would take me.
Yeah.
So it was. I remember I had to get Anthony and Chris got me into UCLA to go to medicals. It was a weird thing, but that was when people, like, literally everybody's so afraid. But the fact that you guys just said, well, whatever it is, and nobody treated me like a leper, even though my wife, when she came to pick me, had plastic everywhere.
Yes.
I got home, it's downstairs. I was like, am I the boy in the bubble? What the fuck is this shit?
John Travolta all of a sudden.
But it was that really, I'll never forget how Sid was in the hallway like, and he just went, fuck it, and he said fuck it too, like, wow, you,
hey, if we go, we go.
you ain't gonna whisper or nothing. No, you just,
should we see if anybody has anything they want to ask? Any questions out there? Oh, there's a list of questions. Fantastic.
that is a lot of questions, Tom.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You ain't got enough liquor in here for that
No,
place.
we bring the bottle out.
Yeah,
keep
but,
you nice.
Hey, don't just stand with the camera. Be useful.
Grab some alcohol. We got a bike?
Oh, there it is. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'll stand up. Hey, Don. How are
Yo,
you? What's up?
what's up?
Hey, DL. Nice to
Hey,
meet
baby,
you.
what's that?
What's going on?
What's up, man?
I have a quick question. How do you convince people, or how do you explain to people the importance behind I'm choosing Kamala and the difference between I'm not choosing Trump? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't know that they're
Okay, so I think a lot of people are just like, well, I'm not voting against Trump, so I might not vote. I mean, I'm not voting for Trump, so I might not vote. And it's like, no, the Democratic candidate is one who you should get behind. So how do you say, like, I feel like people are still kind of choosing between the lesser of two evils when that platform is no longer existent to me.
I think evil is such a subjective term because this is so. What I will say is this: one guy has been on the top of the ticket for 10 straight years. One person has been on the top of the ticket for 120 days. Why does she have to do the fact that she had to come up with a fully formed ideas and to kind of know where she's going in midstream seems unrealistic to me. But to ascribe her as evil, like evil is a. When I hear people say the lesser of two evils, that like I don't believe that we have to deify political figures, and I think that's too common. They don't have to be our idols, but they're tools. They're like a hammer, or they're like the car you use to get to work. But the truth of the matter is, and you and I talked about this, I think that there's some black men and Latin men who believe that white people are superior. I do. And I don't. I never wanted to say that before, but they believe, and so they will allow him latitude that they never would anybody else. You couldn't say you can have a job for 10 years and then say you have concepts of a plan. You couldn't not have fully formed ideas, but I think that there are people who believe that that is the province of some people, and they will give them latitude they wouldn't give to somebody else. So when I say it, no one has to be who's smarter, who is more humane, and who's more likely to make a decision that involves somebody past them. Then you have to make your decision. But what people don't seem to realize is you're making the decision whether you make one or not. So.
And I saw somebody else say, you need to do research and stop doing me search.
Yeah.
And you might actually, figure it out. Thank you for your question, Dexter. Dexter played Muhammad Ali in the Fight Night series. That we
I
just
knew that
did.
was. I was like, wait a minute.
Talented young man. Lot of Kamala questions, a lot of election questions. Why is something going on in the country that I don't know about? Yes, Mr. Jeremy Barber.
It's about. Can you hear me? Yes. It's about men and crying. My daughter once said to me she thought I'd be happier if I cried, and I came from a family tradition where men couldn't cry. You get it beaten out of you. And I said, I cry when I see you sing or do sports. She said, those are happy tears, Daddy. So you cried up there.
Right.
You talk about crying
Right.
and masculinity and sort of I've modeled for my sons, right? Stiff upper lip, roll through it. And what does it mean, crying, for both of you? And what does it mean about masculinity
I
and
watched
humanity?
A dude used to cry while he was kicking my ass. And I'm like, this doesn't seem to go together. But I think that sometimes what I've decided to do with myself is to be exactly what I am at that moment. Because if you pretend to feel something or pretend not to feel something you do, then you're lying to yourself. And I decided I wouldn't do that anymore. I want my son to see me in all facets of who I am. I think one of the things that I have, and I think a lot of black men have, is this notion of what manhood was like by men who never got, except it was one angle. You could provide, you could protect, and nothing. I remember when I had a real bad argument with my daughter earlier this year. And I remember thinking that I'd never asked myself what made me happy or but I remember thinking, well, you just work, you take care about, you die. That seems such a limited, small space, and that I want to be exactly what I am at that moment. If I am exhausted, I want to be exhausted. If I'm jubilant, I want to be jubilant, because I know whatever I am at that moment certainly will not last. People have way more bad days than they do good. Like, if you're blessed in your life to have 10 days that you remember, it's 10 great days in everybody's life that you remember everything, and the rest are days you don't forget, and the other ones are horrible ones. So whatever I feel, I'm gonna say, and whatever, if I feel, I'll never feel like dancing because I'm so bad at it. But I try to be, and I want my son, who I think is one of the most human people I've ever met. I want him to model himself after me, but not have the sense of melancholy and loss that I did. So if he sees me cry or happy or dance, I want him to know the fullness of what it's like to be a male and a man.
What was your highest score on Dancing with the Stars?
See, it's that type of shit right there. It's not.
I just had to ask
it's
it.
not that. See,
I don't know if you remember. I just had to ask.
Yes, it's not hard to remember a 3.
Okay, there we go.
It's not hard to remember that. I could count to 3 when I was 3.
I think I was very fortunate to have the father I had, who to me was like the greatest man I've ever known. And he was a psychologist. My mother was an educator, and we were really luckily raised to talk and to express it. And you could ask why you had to do something. You still had to do it. But you could get some answers about what the thinking was. Like, you feel good? Yeah, now get your ass over there and do what I told you to do.
You know what's funny? I remember when Said's mother passed. and said wasn't. He was very sad, but he had this look. Remember, I talked to you. I was like, he doesn't look like he missed anything. I said, well, he said, no, I did everything that I could. I love her. She's great. I knew she ain't in pain no more. And I was like, I hope my father, if my father was in pain and would stay here, I would do it. I was like, fuck that, you can stay here. But I learned a lot from that, where you have this thing where you have done everything you can, and they have fulfilled their purpose, and you're comfortable with them going. But that is so I would want my children, I want my son. Well, I don't want to go fast, but like if I take a nap, my kids think I'm gone. This is all ours now.
I was going to say, start grabbing at the wall.
Right. I want his leather pants. That's great.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think that's something that we are hopefully getting, more elevated and understand that is not some sort of a negative, and that's not some.
Now, if somebody
pejorative
whipping you,
showing
like if somebody
emotion.
breaking your house and you start crying, that's a whole different. Like,
Not if it's a tactic.
right.
Not if it's a tactic. Okay, anybody else wanna? Yes.
So you alluded to a question around you don't sleep. And I wonder, like we're talking about democracy,
Yeah.
and we often talk about wealth. We rarely talk about health.
Right.
And I think cracking the code on getting black men to
Right.
be more human,
Right.
right?
Right.
And to participate in the democratic process
Right.
is a beautiful thing. But for them to be on this earth is even better.
I think that you're right, but I think that also, I think that for a long time, have you ever known somebody who worked their whole life, they retire and then they die?
Lots of them, yes.
Because they're
lots
not a
of
thing anymore. I think that
Well-
when you're connected to, because that's their identity. You have to be a thing. There's a reason that we live less time than everybody else. And
There's
I think
a lot
part
of
of it is because
reasons
we
why.
don't have a different concept of wealth. But part of it is if I'm not doing a thing, what am I?
Yeah, I mean, purpose and passion are really important for all of us, right? And we were sold a fool's lie, right? We followed a playbook, which was a white man's playbook, and we don't.
Not you, the other ones.
Yeah, over here.
No, not you, Jeremy.
And by the
Jeremy,
way,
plug your ears.
don't tell them what we talk about here. man.
What I mean by
You know
that
those
is
meetings that they talk about? This is that meeting. So you guys, welcome to the meeting. Welcome to the
we
meeting.
call
Hey,
it a
Chris, go
cookout.
get the bongos.
We call it a cookout. But we follow a playbook that we can't necessarily actually play in the game, right? But we do need to be here. We do need to be alive. You talk about your children, you talk about your grandchildren, you talk about legacy.
Right.
That requires a level of changing the paradigm that our health is important. It's our largest economic indicator,
It
right?
is.
In order to provide wealth, not even for yourself, but for your children or for for the community, you have to be here.
Can we do it on your show? Can we do a health?
You can do, Don.
Can we
as
do a
long-
health episode?
It would be my pleasure, but I think I disagree with you slightly. I think that you, and I do think you're right that we were sold a bill of goods. But what did they used to say? If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. I think everything has to have a purpose.
Agreed.
And a lot of men don't have one. They do jobs they don't necessarily care about. They function in a world that doesn't care about them. So just being alive, to be in a situation where you're just going from place to place. So to live, just like to live you have to eat, to live you have to breathe, and you have to drink water, and you have to sleep. They have to find a purpose that's not just connected to doing a thing for somebody else.
Sure.
So the bill of good is that, like, if you buy certain dogs, you better know that you better walk them all the time. Or if you have certain, but a lot of men that I know, and in this way I feel so fortunate, don't have a purpose. They have a job, and they have a house, and they have a family, or they have those things, but they have to find a thing inside of them that makes them want to be here because you're not living, you're alive, but that's just the same thing.
I don't think these are binary things personally. I think there's overlap, and I think that both of those things both are important. Purpose, identity, and I do think that we don't really talk. I had an interesting thing happen to me. I went to my doctor, concierge doctor, pay a fortune for him every month. Great dude, really like him. And I went to, because I was doing some Avenger stuff, and I wanted to get this bone density test. So I did this test. And I was walking out reading the paperwork, and I was like, oh, this isn't, I saw it said white male, then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't. So I went back in, I said, hey, this test, I don't know if this is my results. And she said, oh, wait a minute. And she put it through the thing and better than handed it to me and walked out and said, that's for you, and it had my name on it and everything. So then when I went to my doctor later, and he's very thorough, so every test I've done, everything that's happened, he's going down the whole list. And he gets to this bone density test, and his nurse comes in, and they have this conversation. The door is cracked, and he comes back in, and he puts the paper down. He says, Don, I got to tell you, this is pretty embarrassing, but it's also not really an anomaly. He says, the machine isn't actually calibrated for you.
Yeah.
And he said, the testing doesn't actually see you.
Yep.
And he goes, and honestly, it probably doesn't even see women.
Yep.
And so if you think about that through the entirety of how you are seen in just that profession. Now, we're just talking about that, the metrics of just that. So we're fighting multiple things to not just, be on a path for health, but to even understand what that is and how that is specific to us and the certain things that are systemic and that are unique to us writ large. So I do think that it's something that we do need to focus on, and I think it's something that we've talked about in these conversations a few times that's come up, and I do think it's worth having
Right.
a global conversation around that.
With a
because I think they
left-handed
all
scissor.
affect it. Yes.
You remember how you as a kid, and it was a left-handed scissor that nobody could use except the one left-handed dude, and everything was set up for that. We are like that. Even when you go to wash your hands and you put your hands, ever notice black people got to put their hands under there because it's not set for us. Like I had to have a white guy come in, just do this so I can wash my hands.
Not just get you a cab, but then he had to also get you to
But
wash
the
your
thing
hands.
that I said to you, and I think after a while, if you don't have a thing that edifies you outside of that, why? What is the point of it? It just becomes a futile exercise. And I'm not saying that's not fatalist, but I'm just saying that I've known a lot of men who just don't have a thing that makes them alive. And it can't be connected to a person, or it got to be a thing that's just yours that makes you feel here and seen.
Anybody else?
Hi, everyone. My question is kind of keeping with this topic of masculinity. So in approaching these conversations about being pro-Kamala, how do you do that with misogynoir and misogyny in mind?
And I was talking to Lorna about this last night. I have come to learn that there are I'm not going to pretend like I don't have chauvinistic tendencies, and I haven't. But I don't need you to say that. But there are men who are jealous and who see women in a certain way, and I've never seen it so demonstrative as I do now. And mostly it makes me ashamed. Mostly it makes me, and I know these men have daughters who they want them, and I know they have women that they love, but I think that what this is the thing that's so stark to me is everything that I have learned initially, I learned from a woman. To walk, to eat, to move, to tie my shoes. So she was my leader, but now she can't be. Well, I'll hear men say you got to marry a black woman, but you can't vote for one. And I think that it makes me ashamed, which is a useless kind of a situation to be in, but it makes me feel as if that there is that much more we have to do. I just want the world to be a better place for them little chicks I'm raising. Not that I think Nola's going to go to jail, but I think before she does, I want to no. I don't want to live in a world that is. I don't like to say things like patriarchy and misogyny because I don't. We should be respectful of people that have taught us things. If you look at politically a political exercise of power, black women have a vice president, and the reason Kamala Harris is getting the nomination and has become the top of the ticket is because black women were so politically powerful. They said, if you don't do this, you won't have a party. They have a Supreme Court justice because they said, if you don't give us one, you won't have a party. Brittany Griner got out of prison over a decorated Marine because we're going to get the lesbian basketball player out or you won't have a party. They use power in a way that should be something we should learn from, not be jealous of, not fear. If I can learn from my mother, I can learn from my woman, I can learn. And I think that it's just about feeling as if it's a part of extension of that feeling where you don't belong, and then you see them ascending. And so there's rather
It's a projection.
It is
Absolutely. It is.
And I'm not
It's a jealousy.
I'm a Kate. Like she'll tell you this shit I don't believe, but I hate that part of what I believe has been morphed into this thing where I don't think that you're asking America to do something it hasn't done. It has never had a female leader, but it's never had a black female governor.
That's right.
It's never had an executive of a state.
Yep.
And so you're asking them, and so I really think people are, when people are saying they're undecided, it really comes down to this, for a small percent. Do I want this horrible rapist fraud? Or do I want this thing I've never seen before?
Come on.
And our cause, our charge, is to help them see that it's not as frightening as they think it is.
Yep.
Because and that's not just for the world at large. That's for black men too.
You said, how do you do that?
Well, we got 6 days to figure it out.
I think a lot of it comes from really, leaning into difficult conversations and asking the questions. Because very often I find what happens is after about the second or third question, they really don't, because there isn't an answer. There isn't an answer other than, I just don't like the shit. You know?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
that's ultimately
It's
what
really
it gets
true, though.
to. There's nothing else that it gets to. And then you can kind of start unpacking that. It's like, why? I think that one of the most effective tools without being confrontational is literally those follow-up questions. Because often people walk themselves to their own answer. You don't have to do it. Because they realize that they're playing a tape that's just something that they've had on a loop that isn't really based on anything other than some vague notion of something they were told.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to a place where they're like I love, I don't know if you guys watch the Good Liars, or those are the guys that online that just ask these, they go up and just ask these dudes these questions, and they just repeat it until they're like, yeah, I don't actually, and you just see this glaze come over their face, and it's like, you can't make them go to the next step. But I think leaving somebody in a place where they go, I have no purchase for this argument anymore.
It's funny.
Often have them get to their own
Because
conclusion.
it doesn't, there are very few matriarchal societies, even in the animal world, right? But one that is, and one of the most dominant ones is the hyena. And the female hyenas are the alphas. They are in charge. They have bigger bite pressure. They're the leaders. But they grew to that. They had to become that to survive. And I think that's true of black women. They had to become a thing they necessarily weren't. Life will make you adapt. And I think, for me, and I can't speak for anybody else, this is just my perspective, I think they have grown to a position who can be more attuned to what suffering is like, what hope is like, what responsibility is like.
What challenge is like.
Exactly. Because you look at Hillary Clinton, and I think the only thing I would caution is I think that one thing is that is a thing that I see that is pushing a headwind against what you like to accomplish is this sense of fear. You're afraid because what if? And then they won't, and how come they don't, and how come, what if they? I think that you are in a position to do something the world has never seen. The world has never seen somebody who was literally the last become the first. But that's the Bible you read all the time. But so you can't believe it and be afraid too. I don't have to make you see. I don't want to be. I don't want to be in a position where where I'm forced to see the things I do. I don't want it to be this way. I'd like for there to be somebody that look like me, but they don't. But what am I going to tell that it doesn't exist? I have never put more trust in a group of people than I have in watching what you all do. When soon as this thing happened, they got on the phone. We were talking. They got on the phone and said, "This shit got to happen."
Yep.
And now, when the battle is the hottest, you get afraid. That's the thing. You can't. This fear thing clouds your vision and your judgment. You have got this far for a reason. You will see it through for a reason, and I think you're the only organism that is equipped to be what you need to be at this very moment. And that doesn't make me happy to say it. I wish it was somebody that looked like me, but it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
So I want to stay on this subject. First of all, DL, thank you for your vulnerability. I think one of the things that we're talking about is emotional awareness and emotional intelligence, that coming from a different crowd that's had that power is kind of scary. And the biggest thing that we're looking at is a delay or a lack of evolution in media and entertainment.
Sure.
So one of the things that, as you know, being statesman, looking at the challenge that's almost depressive for someone who is emotionally, artistically driven, what are things to disrupt this, maybe put in a level of respectability in our media as we move forward?
I wish I had
this change.
I had an answer for that, but I would say this. We have to give ourselves a grace that I don't often see we do. And by that I mean, whenever somebody does something that's different or that we haven't seen before, then it's always put in a different category, and we malign it, and we destroy it, and the process of being vulnerable means that you're going to lose a lot more times than you win, and no one is guaranteed safety at all. That's not. I don't think that's it. But I think if we want, like Google fosters mistakes. They say, come in, try, make mistakes. We have to win all the time. Yeah. And the only way that you can ever be a human being, it's like making a recipe for the first time, expecting it to be perfect. Even if you look at what happens to her, she got to have answers right now all the time, fully formed out, and got to happen, or she's not the person. But we have done that to her too. We've done it to our daughters. We've done it to our sons. I hear us talk about grace, but I very rarely see we exhibit it. So it would be a level of grace that we extend to people that are in a space where they're trying to do something that we've never seen before. The reason they call it never because nobody's ever seen it. So,
and I do believe on the disruptor point that I think you are a disruptor in that space. No, for real talk. I think that you are doing things that, again, are challenging the status quo and are, in the best way, kind of confrontational, and are forcing people to think in ways that, if they're listening, if they're tuning in, that's holding them to a different accounting than is usual, than is what we're used to.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I think that we need, not to keep blowing, smoke, but I do think that we need, that I'm glad you're doing it, because it's not done a lot. And I think it's if we lose that, then we're losing a lot. So you can't quit.
Well.
So go to
soon.
the end.
I think that all I want for us, and I said this earlier, is all of our stories have started in the middle. All of our stories have started with somebody telling us who we were. All of our stories is telling what we're going to be and how it works out for us. And all of us here are the exception to a rule, the reason we're here. we should be able to be average and have a good life. We should be able to be average. Like, you don't have to shoot for the stars. Some people just want a gig, go to work, and just be. But whatever somebody is, we have to see them in a way that gives them latitude to bounce around in that space and find themselves, and not have to be somewhere right now. That's the thing about black people. We always got to be somewhere right now. It's like, if I got to do this, and they're gonna look at me, and what we do a lot is always, if somebody does something, the first thing we do is go, I hope they ain't black. But if they do something exceptional, we don't go, I'm glad they black. We can own our failures, but never our successes. And so the most human thing to do is to do both of them. So.
Couple more questions.
Yeah. First of all, thank you both for what you're doing with giving voice to people that don't have that same voice. My great-grandmother lived to be about 105 years old, died in 1980 something, so you do the math, right at the edge of slavery, and you talk about black women and what they've done for our society, and I'm a huge girl dad. How do we support our black women, our black girls, so that what we're seeing with Harris, what we're seeing with Justice Jackson Brown is not the exception and not something that we don't expect, but it's something that just happens? Because you're right, black women have carried us for so long, but I don't think we've always done what we need to give back to those black women the same way they've given to us.
I think it's in process. I think I feel something different.
That's fair.
I do. I think I think because of the divine providence that happened and where we are in this moment in time, I feel like there is a momentum and there is an awareness, because a lot of those questions are being asked. And again, I think when you ask those questions, if you ask them faithfully and really have your arms and eyes and ears open, you bump into answers. And I think that it's very tough for the young people right now. I think if you came out of school during COVID, if you came out, in LA post a strike, if you're trying to start your life right now, we know from our own family, it's really challenging, and you really have a strong headwind against you. So they all need our support. And then anyone who's, in a deficit of support needs more support. So I think it's continuing to find those ways to keep that narrative going and to continue to ask those questions, because I think there'll be a lot of ways that they reveal themselves, whether it's financially, whether it's spiritually, whether it's being on a podcast, whether it's writing an opinion in the newspaper, there's all these different ways that if that's the rock we have to push, we've identified that that's the rock, then that's the rock we will continue to figure out ways to push from wherever you sit. I always go to the church of Too Short, and I'm like, get in where you fit in.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to answer for
Not
yourself.
blow the whistle.
I think you got to blow the whistle, too. You also have to blow the whistle.
It's very funny, because what you're asking for is something, is that, and I said this last night, you know what I've never heard a black man ask for, talk about, and ruminate about? Safety. You never heard a black man say, I want to be safe. It's such an abstract concept. And what you're asking for is somebody to be safe, to be what they are. That's what you're asking for. And so in order for that to happen, you have to extend that to somebody else. We can't just look at things like our daughters and our sons and what happens to us. I remember when COVID happened, my son, he'll be my son now. First he was just a dude my daughter married, but he became my son when he did two things. One, she got sick and he stuck with her. But the other thing is, when COVID happened, he offered his daughter up to take the vaccine, which I said, you cannot just hold things and hope things work around you. You have to really decide. What did they say? Great men plant trees for the shade of which they'll never know. And we have to do that more. If you want a world where your daughter can be whatever she wants to be, you have to make sure that you do that in somebody else's daughter. When I was a kid, I was a young man, and I watched these dudes do things to a little girl. I was 7, I think I told the story, I was 10 or something. It was at Avant Gardes, and they were like, we're doing this thing to this girl. And I went, this is wrong. Like, as a kid. I said, this is wrong. And I said, I don't think like, I had no concept what it was, but I knew she didn't like it. I was like, this doesn't, like, with no point of reference. And I remember grabbing her and walking down the street, and we were going down the street, and they kept hitting me and saying stuff to me. And then I remember I walked her all the way down San Pedro to past AC Billboard Library, and I walked to her house, and her brother got so mad at me because he saw her all torn up, and he came out with a knife, and he was chasing me around the car, and she finally said when he caught me, she said, it wasn't him, and he said, tell me who did it or I'll cut you. And I closed my eyes and said, you got to cut me because I live with him. But I remember coming home, and they knew that I knew they had done something that they always treated me with respect, because even though they're bigger and stronger, they knew that I saw them in their sinful light. Like, that's horrible that you would do this to somebody. And the fact that you didn't recognize it and I did, it gave me a latitude. You have to see that. I just don't understand how we only think it's just our children, just our circumstances, just us that matter. If we want to have a world that is better, we got to be prepared to make a world that's better for other people. It can't just be my daughter. It can't be just my son. It can't just be me being saved. And if that were true, then none of us would be here. All those people that risked things and they died and you got to go on, the Lord you serve, that you all serve, lost something so you could be here. How the fuck are you going to be different? You got to make the world that you want for somebody else, even though that means you might not get it. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I am a black woman who happens to be an elected official. And it has been the most empowering and degrading and meaningful and meaningless experience of my 60 years. And what I hope that you all will continue to do, and what I hope we all commit to, is after November 5th, continue to provide her cover and lean in. Because if we think this is hard, when she moves into the leadership and the world descends on her, this is just the beginning. I hope that you all, based on our shared commitment to her, will find another black woman who's deciding to take the most selfless act you can by give yourself and your family and your privacy to the public, and that will agree to support her too. For all the reasons you talked about, what black women have meant to this society and all societies, and what black women do selflessly for all of us when they choose to run for public office. The issue around the policies. I've come to understand, serving in elected office, that I don't cast my vote for someone who states a specific policy. I vote for capacity, because we don't know what's coming next. I'm voting for someone who has the capacity to assess a situation and make a decision in our best interest that we don't even know the situation is there. They are in rooms and are privy to information that we will never be. So we have to vote for people who have capacity to make that decision for our collective good, as opposed to what they say they would do based on the information they have at the time. That's not what leadership is. No one was prepared for COVID. So thank you for all that you have told us today. Thank you for standing up for us. And I deeply appreciate you both and this space that you've given us to have this conversation.
We thank you. We're going to end it right there. Thank you, DL.
I just want to say to you, I am so glad to see an elected official that's not currently under indictment. That means the world to me.
Wait, but you don't know. Did you ask her?
We'll see.
Well, don't tell us.
Oh, there you go.
Okay,
You
cool.
already know that goes.
Yeah. Thank you all. We appreciate you as always. Please support Blackbird and Happy traffic on the way back.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And I want to say thank you too. Thank you, Don. Thank you, DL. And I do just want to take a moment for the brotherhood, the realness, and the special authenticity that happens when we tell our stories authentically. It is a vulnerable thing to stand in space. For me, it's really uncomfortable, but we are in profound times, and we're coming up on a profound moment that is deeper than just these conversations. It's really freedom and democracy in a real way in our lifetime, in a way we never saw. So I appreciate you both for taking this time to have this conversation, for you all to come through Los Angeles traffic and keep going. We have 7 days. Thank you for Donversations. I love you, as you know. And thank you to my friends who are here as well. Thank you.